Oh yeah, what's up? Welcome to a fresh new edition of the Assistant Coaches Lounge. I am your humble host, Greg Larnard, the hitting coach for the University of North Alabama softball team. So excited to bring you a brand new episode here today. And today we have ourselves a very special guest. And it is not only a very special guest because he's a dear friend of mine, but it's also our first non-coach guest. Yes, you might think the Assistant Coaches Lounge, I'm only going to bring on assistant coaches and other coaches and things along those lines. No. Well, technically, he was a coach back in the day. We're going to get into all of that, but he is a big-time broadcaster nowadays. Please join me in welcoming the main play-by-play broadcaster for the Alabama softball, women's basketball, and volleyball teams on the television side of things. He hosts the Out of the Box podcast with Tom Canterbury, along with Good Morning Softball America on the Softball America Podcast Network with Tara Henry, a former national champion at UCLA. He originally hails from the great city of Birmingham, Alabama, and he lost a race to your boy on some stairs at 2 a.m. in Las Vegas. Put your hands together for Gray Robertson.
I won that race. Okay, let the record show that I beat you up those stairs.
We will never know, unfortunately.
No, I don't recall. Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Hey, what's up, Gray? I appreciate you jumping on and being our first non-assistant coach guest. I do plan to have on some head coaches at some point. We love to give the love to maybe the less known, like the assistant coaches, the broadcasters, because everybody focuses on the head coaches and all of the teams and all of the players and things like that, which is great. They deserve all of the love, but you do as well. So I wanted to have you on here to share your story about how you got to where you are and kind of some of the stops along the way. So again, you grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and growing up and where the love of sports really came into your life.
Oh, man, I got extremely lucky because I grew up in a sports family. My parents were both involved in sports management. So basically, planning fanfare at the SEC championship, selling tickets to the championship game and basketball tournament and, premium hospitality there. And you sit in the zone at Bryant-Denny Stadium. That was my parents managing that. And they did that at a lot of different schools, not just Alabama, but schools around the SEC, schools around the country. And so I grew up going to everything. My internal claim to fame, it's not really a claim to fame, I'm just proud of it, is that I've never missed an SEC championship game. And up until softball kind of took over my life, I'd never missed an SEC men's basketball tournament either. And it's just been something that I grew up with. And because of that, and because my parents were working so deeply in the machinations of these events, I got to see so many different things on a different level. I got to meet the people at the conference office who run everything. I got to talk to all types of broadcasters who just so happen to help with certain events at these hospitalities and fanfares and fanfests and whatnot. And I got to really see kind of how all this happens and how all it all works. And I kind of loved it. So I grew up in sports and I wanted to stay there forever. And that is currently still the plan. As of now, no alternative paths for your boy.
As you shouldn't. As you mentioned, the machinations. I love the usage of the word machinations there. That was a real broadcaster thing of you.
Thank you.
I appreciated that. So you grew up around all of these sports and it was big into your family. Did you play sports growing up? What sports did you play growing up, if you played anything?
Yeah, I was a hooper for a time, and then that time ended in high school. Played a lot of golf. Grew up playing golf. You got the Masters hat on today. I had a club in my hands at 2. I played a little tennis growing up. I played football. I played pretty much anything. Oddly enough, the one thing I really didn't play was baseball. I did 1 year of fall ball, and it just wasn't. I don't know. I didn't love it. And I kind of preferred basketball. So I kind of focused on that at the time. Kids don't focus on sports too young. Don't do what I did. But yeah, I played as much as I could. I wasn't necessarily great, but I loved it. And I loved a lot of the strategic things that went into each and every different sport. I loved golf and how it tested me and made me get stronger internally because I can get pretty frustrated. And I had to learn how to deal with that on the golf course myself. And yeah, so I was always playing something until I wasn't, and then I was talking.
Yeah, then you weren't playing, you were talking about the sports that you used to play and then some that you didn't used to play and never had played before as well. So that's kind of a cool turn of events. But kind of going back to your childhood a little bit and growing up around all of those sports with your parents seeming like a big influence for you. Talk to me a little bit about the influence that they had and maybe some of the coolest specific things you remember getting a chance to do that like a normal kid just really wouldn't get a chance to do, or any of those moments that really stand out for you.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can think of a bunch. I think the thing that I learned best from my parents was how to manage an event. Like when you're running something, even at 8 and 9, I was soaking up the way that my mom in particular, she was really good at this, was able to handle anything that was thrown at her. And kind of simultaneously, I took from my dad the importance of connections. And I've taken from my dad. Like you walk into any establishment anywhere, Robbie Robertson is going to see somebody he knows and he's going to go over and talk to that person. I remember we were in like the Glasgow airport one year on a family vacation. Some old donor at Mississippi State walks up to him and we're dead tired and about to board this plane, and he's sitting chatting it up with this bulldog. And both of my parents, I think, taught me a lot about how to run things, how to manage events, and also how to build the connections needed to make sure that those things go smoothly. That's why why I'm so drawn to Alabama softball, to be honest, but also why the relationship piece has always been so crucial to me. And then I got to do a lot of stuff on my own growing up as well. I was a member of the ball crew, which if you're out there and you don't know what that is, they're the little kids who go out with the towels wiping up the sweat at the men's basketball tournament. So I got to do that until I was 12. And then John Gibson and Corey Dolan and Ben Godwin, they put me in charge of the ball crew. So they found the kids, and then I was in charge of making sure that they knew everything they were supposed to do, handling. I call myself an assistant on-court operations person.
Real official title.
Yeah, really official, but it's on my resume. And I was running all these kids as a junior high student. Wow. And making sure that they were where they needed to be and kind of making sure that everything ran smoothly. And then I would say like the one other experience that I come to all the time that sticks with me today was one time we were at breakfast in Birmingham, and we got a tip that Michael Phelps would be eating at that same place for dinner with his girlfriend at the time. They're no longer together. My apologies to them. He married someone else, but we got to sit at the table next to Michael Phelps. And at one point, my dad, of course, prompted us to go and meet him. And it was kind of the first time in my life I'd ever been shell shocked. And my mom said, "Well, are you going to ask Mr. Phelps anything?" And I couldn't think of anything to say. And so I looked
speechless
at him
for a second.
I was. And then I looked at him and I said, "Do you get nervous?" And he said, "Of course I do, because I know the second those butterflies are gone, that means I don't care anymore about what I'm doing and it's time to stop." And that to me has always been a sign. Again, I know we're like early doors, but if I'm not nervous before a broadcast, then that means it's time to stop. If I don't feel those butterflies, those words from Michael Phelps ring true to me. Because that means I'm too comfortable, or that means I'm just past the point where I want it. And that's why I'm always nervous before a show. And I always think it's, because of what Michael Phelps said, because that's proof that I still want it and I'm still excited about the opportunity in front of me.
So what you're saying is you were nervous to come on this show tonight?
No, I was. So
you didn't care about it? Okay, I
was nervous, excited. That's important. Don't put words in my mouth, Larnard. Come on.
You know what's funny about what Michael Phelps said there? I do really think that is true of specifically broadcasters and athletes and things like that. But I did want to say this as an assistant coach. I'll be honest. I've had many of interactions, this being my first year at UNA, being on payroll and having a larger role and things like that. I've had Ashley Kozar come up to me and ask me a couple of times, like, "Hey, how you feeling, coach? Like, are you nervous?" And I'll be honest, like, I haven't really had those big time nerves going into a game yet this year. I'm sure that's going to change once we get into conference tournament play and things like that. But even going into conference games against Central Arkansas or Austin P, which are obviously big ones for us in conference, I just really haven't been nervous. Now, I'll get a little bit nervous while we're in game and the game is going on and it's unfolding and things like that, because there's obviously a lot riding on it. But I think for me, I specifically just don't feel nervous because I feel like we've done a really good job here at UNA just preparing the girls as best as we possibly can, that, hey, once we go into a game, they're ready. And I'm not nervous about how they're going to perform. I have confidence that they're going to perform well because I feel like we've prepared them well going into this game. Now, again, once the game starts going on and things maybe don't go our way and, okay, now we have to adjust, and that's when some of the nerves sort of, creep in a little bit. But I for the most part, my demeanor is generally that kind of cool, calm. Hey, let's stay patient. Let's stay level-headed while everything else is kind of maybe going crazy around us.
But I also think that nervousness can manifest in a lot of different ways. Like I'm not like scared when we're starting.
No, I know.
But I'm excited, and
yeah,
I think that I think that might be kind of like your nervous is calm, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I think we all you're probably calm, but you're probably moving a good bit, right? And I think of the phrase like, if it means something to you, you can't sit still. Like that's also kind of ties into it a little bit. At least that's for me. If you look at us in the booth before a game, we're like dancing, like all types of movement. The amount of things that are happening 3 minutes before we go on the air that are probably ridiculous looking is unmatched. So yeah, I mean, but I hear you.
And I understand where you're coming from as well, because I generally would have that same feeling. And I feel like I felt that a lot more as a player than I do as a coach. Now, maybe it would be different if I were a head coach, and I've head coached, travel ball teams and organizations and done those things. And I feel like I'd be a little bit more nervous as a head coach than I am as an assistant coach. And maybe that's what would change when I'm a head coach. Again, I don't know.
Maybe the other part of it is the lack of control, right? Like, because when you're a coach, you do get them ready, and then you set them free. You open your palms and say, "Fly, birdie, go execute this game plan that we've put together to beat Austin P." And when you're a player, you're the one that has to perform. And when you're the one actually doing it, you're the one that has to perform. So there are layers to it. I agree.
There are. And I'm just sort of looking something up because I saw this thing on Instagram, and it was from Arizona. And when they were down 7 to Purdue at halftime in the Elite Eight, when things kind of didn't look like it was going their way, Tommy Lloyd, the head coach, at halftime just sort of said, "Guys, the coaching staff and I are going to leave right now. You guys figure this deal out." And just sort of like you said, just sort of, hey, this is your team. Figure it out. Let them
be free.
Let them free. Yeah. Which I love that. Like, I just think I think specifically in coaching, and you can speak to this because we'll get into it. You were a coach at one point in your career, and you've been around a lot of really high level coaches, especially, Patrick Murphy with the softball team and how much success that man has had. And I'm sorry, I don't know the women's basketball or volleyball coaches and all this.
Well, there is none on women's basketball right now. We're still looking to see who that is.
Okay. Well, yeah, you'll figure it out. But over the years, I'm sure they've had, decent basketball coaches and things along those lines. But just from a coach's perspective, I think there is such a need for that control, like you talked about earlier, of like, hey, I want to do everything that I can possibly do to say the right thing to the players and to get them motivated. But sometimes that's counterproductive, and it almost makes it seem like, hey, we're trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, like you said, you just have to let them free and let them go and just say, hey, it's on you guys. We've prepared as much as we can possibly prepare. You guys know what you can do. Go out and do it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, I think of Roy Williams. I can't remember where I heard this story. I know I've heard it, but he used to just not call timeout and would just look at the guys and say, "You got in this mess, figure it out." And I think sometimes coaches forget how well they've prepared their players, and to just let them do it. Let them do the thing. They're ready for the moment.
Absolutely, they are. So let's talk a little bit about, you getting into broadcasting, you getting into coaching. Talk to me about you growing up and trying to figure out, okay, like what does Greg Robertson want to do for a career? Like, obviously, talk to me a little bit about, what came up first between broadcasting and coaching and how they sort of intertwined together and where your journey sort of went, because you did some really cool things from a broadcasting perspective in high school and coaching, if I remember correctly as well.
Yeah. I spilled a lot to you over the years. And by over the years, I mean
Over
the
the
last
years,
couple
you mean the
months.
last 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, since Greg and I met in December. So gosh, it's a long story. So
Hey, we got nothing but time, baby.
you're not
That's what we're
wrong.
on the podcast for.
Um,
Yeah, take a sip of water. Get ready.
basketball.
Buckle
So
in, everybody.
basketball was my sport, and so when I went to high school, I went to boarding school in Virginia, and a big reason why was basketball. I was going to go and play hoops there, and at the time, while I was still living in Alabama, I had a radio show. Now we know that as a podcast, but at the time, radio show on blogtalkradio.com.
Dude,
Called,
I did a show on
did you
blogtalkradio.com.
really?
Yeah.
RIP, honestly.
I know. Oh, man. That was like when I don't mean to interrupt you, but this was such just a cool little thing. Like when I was in between jobs, I had gotten a job in New York City, and it was before I got my job in Louisiana. There was like 6 or 7 months where I didn't have a broadcasting job. So I went to Blog Talk Radio. They gave me I think it was like maybe 1 or 2 hours a week that I did a show on. You get the virtual studio, you get a little call-ins, you can do the show. Like it was a cool little concept. It was like you said, like sort of like live radio / podcasting at its best. It was like the StreamYard before StreamYard or any of these other streaming platforms that we have.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, it was perfect. And I was just this little, gosh, ninth grade the first time, kid in his bedroom recording, talking to whoever from the SEC office, or we had, Rick Stansberry on, and like just whoever I could pull. Joe Dean Jr. came on, and Bucky McMillan at the time, former Mountain Brook varsity head coach, current Texas A&M head men's basketball coach. Who would have thought all those years ago? And so when I went to Woodbury, I asked if I could keep doing the show. And the problem was I didn't want to change my time slot, because in my head, again, junior high
Big
turned
time.
high schooler, I'm like, I can't lose my listeners. They've got this set amount of time every week where I'm going to go on and they've got to hear me. And the school, credit to them, they were like, yeah, you can miss the first 30 minutes of study hall to do your little show. That's great. And they were really supportive of it. And so I kept that throughout high school, had that going over here. And then I'm doing all the different sports because you have to have a different trimester activity. And junior year, I come back for varsity basketball tryouts. And at the time we've had radio, and I've been doing, football halftime, and then sophomore year I pop on and do more analyst work. And I show up to varsity basketball tryouts my junior year. I feel like I'm skipping around a lot. And they've got all these kids from California, from New York, these beasts. And I remember Joe Foley, this freshman from California, is just like doing the spider ball handling drill next to me. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I'm out of my depth. I have not done enough. I have not worked. I'm slow. No, this ain't it. And I went up to Coach Dawson, varsity coach, and I said, Coach, I think I might have another role around here. And he said, Gray, you might be right. And so I pitched him kind of bringing the football radio equipment and doing varsity radio broadcasts the entire time. And then that spring, the varsity football coach, Clint Alexander, said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the parents could watch us practice? And that was all he had to say. And then we kind of ran off with this proposal to the school that I worked on the entire spring about putting together the Woodbury Forest School Production Network, which was at the time Woodbury Forest Sports. And then our headmaster, Byron Holsey, said, why would we just do sports when we could show everything? And I said, that's a fair point. We could broadcast the plays and speeches and everything else that's going on. So we put that proposal together. The school is into it. We find the funding from some donors, which was great. And then Coach Alexander and Brian Stevenson and Chris Holmes come to me about the idea of going into coaching our Bengal team, which was the freshman team, and JV quarterbacks, since I was going to be broadcasting varsity football every weekend. That would give me an activity, a fall activity to do, the rest of the week. And so I was, and the big reason why was because when I morphed into the varsity play-by-play guy, I guess it was junior year, back half of sophomore year fall, junior year fall, I would go to the coaches meetings and ask questions, and I would watch a lot of tape to get ready for those broadcasts. And Coach Alexander, I guess, thought I had some good things to say, so he let me stick around with the quarterbacks, and I'd done some quarterbacking in my day as well. I went to the Manning Passing Academy, didn't do well, but yeah, I guess it all just came together to where senior year I was running a network, full-time broadcasting on the weekends, and then during the week in the fall, coaching freshmen.
Unbelievable.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, how did you get an invite to the Manning Passing Academy?
Archie and my dad had known each other forever, and I was playing in 7th grade. I was a quarterback, and good arm, not mobile. Mobility has often been an issue, except for that stair race in Vegas. And I went down to Thibodaux, Louisiana. AJ McCarron was my coach, and had a great time. But a couple years later, my football playing career was over.
So you obviously got a chance to meet Peyton and Eli.
Oh yeah.
So who did you like better between the two of them?
I mean, they're both great. Like Eli's sense of humor is different, but they're the same. And it was only a brief moment, but they're both great.
What a diplomatic answer.
I'm not going to pick favorite Manning brothers. The funniest one is Cooper.
Yes, the funniest one is Cooper. Cooper is hilarious. And allegedly, Marshall Manning is a stud out in Baylor, Tennessee, a Baylor school in Tennessee. One of my buddies, a couple of the kids that I used to coach play with him out there in Tennessee, and they say he is legitimately the real deal. So we may have another Manning coming up through the high school and college ranks here after this year Arch goes pro.
I'm sure Warby Parker is excited.
Oh, I bet. 100%. All right, so you started this network in high school. You're doing the network. You're coaching football as well. So while you were doing all of this, what was swirling around in your brain? What was the idea of like, hey, where do I want my career to go? Because was there sort of like a light switch moment, or were you kind of deciding between two? Was coaching ever like a legitimate thought of like, hey, I might actually want to get into coaching? Or did you sort of know it was always broadcasting, or did you think it was something different and it became broadcasting?
I think I always knew it was broadcasting. Like the coaching thing, which we were very good. And shout out to my boys. You know who you are, Will Weidman.
Offensive mastermind over here.
Khalid, the whole gang, Miles, all my QBs. We were very good. And, as our freshman team put up ridiculous numbers, our JV quarterbacks were excellent. But it was it was a hobby, more or less. I mean, it was a job and I took it seriously, but it wasn't anything that I saw happening long term. I knew, though, once the broadcasting really took off, and I think in a way I had kind of not realized the amount of, I guess, the amount of ground you can cover on the broadcasting side until the network started, because I very much remember very vividly, the band, our broadcast team for football was myself, our chaplain, Dr. David Smith, the doctor, and our physics teacher, Greg Jacobs. We were the trio, and we called ourselves the band. And, for years on the radio side, we asked listeners to send in emails, we'll shout you out, etc. We did the same thing for our first TV broadcast on WFSPN. And the first comment we got was a guy who was stationed overseas saying, "Hey, I'm in the military watching on our base. Just wanted to shout y'all out." And I was sitting there like, what? That's possible? Like, we can have guys off wherever he is right now. I don't even remember if he legally could tell us, like shout us out and say, hey, I'm watching and be tuning in live. And that blew my mind. And so then I kind of realized the responsibility that comes with this. Like, you are not only describing what's happening, but you are in oftentimes the lifeline for somebody somewhere trying to keep track of this certain event. And that I liked that pressure a little bit. I liked kind of being the mouthpiece for somebody and to be the one that informed them so that they could find out what's going on or make a decision or all that jazz. So I think, especially as the broadcasting piece got busier, and by senior spring, we were doing everything. I mean, I've called golf with the radio equipment, driving around, following Peter Nade. We did lacrosse when I'd never so much as seen a lacrosse match before, excuse me. Like we were doing everything, but I was obsessed. I was in love with it. And I knew that wherever I went in college, which for most of senior year, the decision was between Alabama and Georgia. I knew that wherever I went, I wanted to be broadcasting as soon as possible. And I felt like Alabama was the best way to make that happen. And thankfully that proved correct.
So was that the only reason why you chose Alabama over Georgia? Because that was sort of my next question of, okay, we do all this cool stuff in high school. You get your broadcasting going, this is, hey, what I want to do. What led you to going to Alabama over Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much that. I pretty much had, thankfully, again, because of my parents, I knew enough people at Alabama to where I felt like I could at least get my stuff out there a little bit quicker. Whereas I had the same at Georgia, but it was more a different role. It was more inside the athletic department as opposed to doing the broadcasting piece. And that's where I wanted to go. I mean, as much fun as being an SID would be, that's not, being in the communications department or whatever. That wasn't really what my goals were. And so while Georgia would have been awesome, I love Athens. I love a lot of people at Georgia. Alabama was the right move, 1,000%. And growing up, an Alabama fan helped, I would say.
Yeah, and you get a chance to kind of be close to home as well from Birmingham. So a lot of factors there. I've never been to Athens, but I've heard really good things about it.
Oh yeah.
You got some stories?
Well, of course. I mean, my favorite restaurant is there. Shout out to Valash Resort. Multiple great establishments. And yeah, they had some run-ins. It's great. It's a great place. Great town. No covers. We love that. Just all about Athens.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about your time spent at Alabama, getting into broadcasting there. What was that like at a major university and SEC school? Like I know how it was for me at a Division III school in upstate New York. It was very easy. You sort of just got in with the radio station. They gave you a show. You kind of did all of that. At that point, when I first joined, this is how old I am, there wasn't actually live online streaming at that point. We integrated while I was there, but it took us a little time to get it there. And then from there, it was, okay, hey, you want to be in the sports department? You can start broadcasting games. We'll kind of make a schedule and kind of do it the way that it's supposed to be done. So what was your experience like getting into the communications and getting into being a broadcaster there at Alabama?
Again, this is a pretty layered story. So
layer it up, I'm gonna make it an onion, make it a cake, whatever you want to do.
Okay, great. I'm going to do my best. So they have Crimson Tide Productions here, which is basically a way for the students to get involved in the SEC Network Plus broadcasts behind the scenes. I went and interviewed with Justin Brandt and a couple other guys. And obviously the first thing I say is, I want to be on air. And they're like, sure, kid. Okay. But they let me in. They gave me the job. I did some behind the scenes stuff. I was terrible at it. Not good. First time I gripped a basketball game, abject disaster. Pretty much pulled the camera off the cameraman's back multiple times. However, that got me in with the CTP people. Then think back about the high school part. So my freshman year of college, we had this big rivalry game Woodbury does against Episcopal High School. And I had this plan to go back up and call the game with the band. We were going to do it. It's going to be a big return, big rivalry. We've been playing for 100 and some odd years. And I go up, and after calling the game, I'm walking up the hill to go to my car. And one of my former players, his dad, stops me and says, "Oh, we always loved listening to you while you were here." And I said, "That's great. Thank you." And he said, would you like a job at Learfield? And I said, yes, I would. And he got me in touch with someone at Learfield who got me in touch with Jim Carabin at Alabama, who's in charge of the Crimson Tide Sports Network and Crimson Tide Sports Marketing. And saw freshman spring of 2017, I go into his office and he said, well, when women's basketball just ended, would you like to hop on softball? I've always loved Alabama softball. I remember watching Hawaii beat them in Supers in 2010 at my lake house. Tough time. I remember staying up watching the 2012 Natty after the rain delay. I remember when Marissa Runyon hit the grand slam against Oklahoma and I flipped a table while Woodbury out of celebration. Love Alabama softball. So I said yes. And he introduced me to this guy named Tom Canterbury. And I went and sat in for the first 2 games of the LSU series for the 2017 season, called game 3 with Tom, and that was it. And they said it was good enough to come back. And Tom and I have, been working together ever since. And so after 2 years of radio, I sent all this other stuff to CTP, all these radio clips and whatnot. And I said, okay, but like, I wasn't kidding. I can do play-by-play and all that jazz. And they let me do TV, and I did soccer with Haley McDonald as a junior, which technically undergrads aren't supposed to do play-by-play on SEC Network Plus, but it's fine. Don't tell anyone.
You're Gray Robertson. You can do whatever you want.
It's fine. We'll keep it a secret. Those are past now anyway. And yeah, and then it all just kind of just kept happening, and it's kind of been that way ever since. With part of it was because COVID happened, and then why would I leave Alabama when I know that I'm good here? But yeah, I mean, it started like that, just running into people, getting lucky, having a couple of people who knew each other, and then being able to jump into a university that's widely visible and a program where I'm one of the radio guys and I'm treated like family.
Okay, so I generally ask this question at the very end because I do think it's a great question to wrap up with, but you just lamented on something that I kind of would like you to touch a little bit more on, and that right there in terms of making connections and growing your network and things like that. So the question I always like to ask towards the end is, if you were speaking to a younger broadcaster that was in your shoes way back in the day, trying to figure out, okay, I know I want to be a broadcaster. How do I go about doing this? Kind of talk a little bit more about growing your network and some other things that you would say to them to get to where you are, or maybe where they want to be in terms of a national job or a radio job or a television job, something along those lines.
Well, I would say the one tip, not necessarily like connections based, but the one thing that I always believe is never say no. The only time I've ever said no is if it's because I have a conflict. That's it. Otherwise, if somebody says, hey, can you do this? My answer is yes. And I even think back to that freshman year, Jim Carabin asked if I wanted to do softball. I left at the opportunity to do softball. Did I know anything about softball? Of course not. I'd never played. I just watched the games. I hadn't even really talked to anyone who'd ever been involved with softball before. And if you look at my notes from that first LSU weekend, that kid didn't know anything. He's like, oh, Allie Waljasper, pitch moves. Like, yes, of course, Allie Waljasper's pitch moves. Are you kidding? But I said yes because it was an opportunity, and I left at that. I think saying yes is sometimes half the battle. Some people, and I used to feel this too. Like, you get so nervous, you don't even necessarily want to say yes because you don't want to fail. And if you say no, then you don't know if that opportunity is going to come again. Now, in terms of connecting, just again, stealing it from my dad, just talk to everybody. I mean, who cares? Like, what the worst thing that's going to happen is maybe they don't think about that conversation again until the next time you see them. The best thing that's going to happen is you make a new friend in Las Vegas, or you hang out with a coach who can maybe give you a job down the road, or you talk to somebody who might know someone who can get you in at whatever big network. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So kind of the same as saying yes, just talk to everybody. Like, who cares? I mean, what do you lose not talking?
Nothing, and I think young people really have to, I don't want to say get over that part of it, but especially in this day and age, I feel like there is a lot of social anxiety because a lot of people don't know how to do exactly what you just described in terms of talking to people, because a lot of people are on their screens or on their phones or keyboard warriors, and they don't know how to socially interact with people anymore. Like
Yeah.
you're younger than I am, but I remember, going through the battles of like picking up the home phone if I wanted to call a friend and, hey, like, you want to hang out, like, you want to do a sleepover, or calling a girl's phone, like house phone, and having to like probably talk to her mom or dad before talking to her, and like, or her older brother.
I'm sure you
like,
were
that's
very
intimidating.
smooth.
Dude, the glow up was real. I was a very socially awkward kid, if I'm being very honest. I was fat when I was younger, and I used to get picked on for that. And it kind of gave me some internal anxiety and some social anxiety that I didn't even realize I was having until I was older and kind of could look back and process that time. Like I played like high school basketball. I never played varsity, but I played freshman. I played JV. And I just didn't really feel like I ever fit in well with those kids, the group of kids that were on the varsity team. And I remember they would have pasta parties and do different things. And I would be so worked up internally and felt so uncomfortable that I just wouldn't even go. Like I would just make it up an excuse or just say I didn't feel good. I remember times where I was on a basketball team during this, like a summer league, that I just didn't really know or like the kids I was playing with. And I just like worked myself up so much internally that I, like you said, just didn't do it or didn't go. And I really wish I would have sucked it up and gone, but the younger version of myself just was trying to protect me, I guess. And I think that is a valuable lesson nowadays of like, yeah, you may be nervous, but again, what's the worst that can happen? And think about maybe the best that can happen instead of thinking about the worst that can happen.
Yeah. I mean, no, totally. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like batting 1,000 at going to talk to people, because also like you get to a certain age where you're also trying to thread the needle of like, okay, but what's polite, because the last thing you want to do is encroach upon somebody else and, in their free time, or if they're at a party or whatever, you do kind of have to play that right. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing. And I love what you said about, again, making connections and just talking to everybody. And I had an ex-girlfriend that used to joke with me because whenever we were in our apartment building and got in an elevator, I would always talk to whomever was in the elevator, basically 97% of the time. And after they left, it was, oh, so are you going to invite so-and-so to our wedding now? Like that was sort of the running joke. Like, oh, we got another one to the list. You're talking to everybody.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, good times. All right. Anyway, so you talked about while you were in school getting an opportunity that really nobody gets in terms of being a broadcaster, being on SEC Network Plus, and doing the games and getting that opportunity to be a play-by-play guy, and probably, again, more so than anybody else would have gotten in an opportunity as a student. So you go through that process, you get all this incredible experience as a broadcaster. What is it like as you're nearing graduation? What is the conversation? What are you dealing with internally about, okay, well, what's next for me? Where do I go? Do I stay here? Is there another opportunity? What are you doing? What are you thinking? What's the situation looking like for Gray Robertson?
So I'm dragging my feet a little bit because I was so happy, and college is coming to an end, and let me take you back to February of 2020, where Alabama is the #1 team in the country in the preseason poll. And so I've got this grand plan. I'm like, look, I don't know what the next step is, but it's going to end with me and Tom being on the call for a national championship. And then I'm going to ride off deuces and tell everybody goodbye. I'm going to go get another job, and it's going to be the best. And then Alabama gets off to a 1-3 start in Tallahassee. And I'm like, okay, tough beginning. But you know what? Dream's still alive. Go to Clearwater, you run rule number 1, Washington, everything's fine. And then COVID happened. And then, there were all the emotions of, well, I don't want to go. I don't want to go out like that. I don't want our seniors to go out like that. At that point, it was such an interesting time because I felt like I was with the adults all the time, but I was the same age as Bailey Hemphill and Kaylee Tao and Claire Jenkins. Kaylee wasn't in that senior class, but that group of seniors. And I kind of felt like Taylor Clark and I were close. And I remember the day the NCAA canceled the season and we were texting, and she's like, I can't believe I played my last game. And I was like, dang, I can't believe I've called my last game and with y'all on the field. And it wasn't something that I could necessarily let go of immediately, because also at the same time, there was nobody hiring anybody in sports. And I got lucky that summer being able to do stuff with the FGCL, and that's now taken on a life of its own. And I'm still doing that in the summer with the summer softball league. But like, I think part of me, I just didn't want to leave without seeing what that senior class did. And also it was a job that I had. I was like, I know I've got Bama softball, and I know Alabama sports will come back. And I know when that happens, they'll have me there for volleyball season with Natalie Ledford and whoever else, wherever else I need to be. And so that kind of made it easier to stay. And now staying has just been, now we'll see what comes on down the road, but I'm happy and life's good. And I'm still waiting on that natty, maybe this year.
Yeah, have not gotten an opportunity to broadcast one of those, but the Alabama softball team in 2026 is sure a doozy. So yeah, you guys may have an opportunity. I'm going to knock on wood for y'all because I don't want to jinx anything for you guys. But yeah, so you've been doing that for a number of years since you graduated, just sort of seamlessly transitioned into the broadcasting world. I know you want to call a national championship. I guess give me some of your highlights in terms of being a broadcaster and some of the coolest things that you get a chance to do in calling these games and working with the people that you get a chance to work with. And then, how did you get involved with the podcast that you do as well?
Oh, again, you ask such good questions. You clear the runway for me. Man, I have worked with the best people. I am so lucky. And so like one of my big things is whenever I work with somebody new, we're going to lunch, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna build that chemistry well before we ever get on the air, because otherwise people can tell. When you're watching TV and these people have never hung out in their lives. And that's never the situation I want to be in. And how lucky am I that 98% of the people I've worked with are now like really good friends and really people that I can call upon if a relative dies, or if we just need to talk on the phone or whatever. Like that's the people I've got, which I'm so blessed that those folks who we just happened to work together a couple times or multiple years have become some of my best friends. We also get to share in some of the most magical things you can ever imagine. And, the radio side with Tom, what a partnership that's been for 10 years together. And, we do the pod, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But on the TV side, like Caleb Rowe, who's now an assistant here, we called the World Games 2022 in Birmingham when it was USA versus Japan in the gold medal game. And we also called Chinese Taipei versus Australia. And I've got that board framed right there. Bro and I signed it.
Nice.
And just in my hometown of Birmingham, like what an incredible experience. Gosh, Montana's perfect game against UCLA. That's up there. I mean, some of the other stuff, like the Alliance All-Star game, it's not, it's not a national championship. It's not the World Series. But what I love about the event is Jamie Loprice does such a good job showcasing the future of the sport. And, I've done it with Kat Osterman and with Amanda Scarborough and with Natasha Watley and Brittany McKinney. And we get to see the future. We get like Tegan Kavan. I'm going to call her game on Thursday. I've already called a Tegan game because I watched her in the Alliance All-Star game years ago. And it's so special because we get to see in all of these different events something we haven't seen before. There is no game that is the same as the other, and to get to share that with someone important to you is even better, because then it's a memory that means even more after you leave the stadium. And as for the pod, 2019 Emily Pitek said to us, 2018, she said to me and Tom, you should start a podcast. And we said, why? And she said, because people want to hear what you have to say. And we were like, no, they don't. And more people kept suggesting this. And Tom and I were finally like, all right, like, Tom, you have a job at the radio station, whatever. Can we just go and record? And we said going into 2019, okay, we'll go record the premiere. It'll be our one episode during non-con, and then we'll come back and do an episode weekly during SEC play. And we put it out, we advertised it, and people listened. For reasons unbeknownst to me, they were into it. And so then I remember we were at UAB and I was like, oh my gosh, we got to record another episode. Murph, who should we have on? And he said, oh, definitely Caleb Rowe and Madison Shipman. And we said, great. I said, can you send me their numbers? So I got Bro and Ship's numbers from Patrick Murphy. And then it took off. And now we're on year 8 of talking to some of the best minds in softball and soaking up everything they have to say, and also getting to spend time with friendships that have come from that. I mean, like this weekend, Beth and Michelle will be here. Michelle is a sweetheart and Beth is amazing, and I cannot wait to see them this weekend, and hopefully at some point, minus them being night games, share a glass of wine after the games end and talk about all the softball that we've seen. Like, again, it's just, I feel lucky that all of these friendships and relationships have come out of just talking. I guess that's a very long-winded answer to like multiple questions. I hope that suffices.
No, it was fantastic. And I think one of the best things about, like you said, doing the podcast and getting a chance to make these connections and get to know people on a deeper level than just the normal broadcaster of like, hey, you probably get a chance to talk to them and ask them questions, the head coaches and things like that before games, or maybe some players or whatever. You get a chance to have a little bit more of an informal conversation and get to know them a little bit deeper. And it only helps. It's got to help with y'all's broadcast.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it also gives me a resource to talk the game with people, because again, I didn't play softball, so I'm still learning. And so I'll text Amanda Scarborough and say, help me understand what this means, or help me understand how this happened, or how are they able to square up this pitch after, all that kind of stuff. But to your point about the broadcast, like, yeah, I think the part that I enjoy the most when we talk to coaches is truly getting to find out about the human side, because these coaches, especially in softball, like they don't necessarily get to be themselves all that much, because frankly, the media doesn't pay attention as much as they should. And whenever they are, it's postseason crunch time. They're not allowed to laugh. They're not allowed to have fun. If they make a joke, it's weird timing. And I like that, when we have media days and we talk to coaches, we get to be like, hey, so, if you had to pick anyone to sing the national anthem at a softball game, who would you pick? At the end of the in-depth roster conversations and stuff like that. And it allows for those relationships to be built. I would like to think that we're on good terms with all the coaches. I certainly have enjoyed every single coach in the SEC and beyond that we've ever talked to on the pod or talked to for a coach call. And it allows, I think, for the coaches to be human beings, which I don't think a lot of fans see that side of head coaches as much as they probably should. A lot of coaches are funny. Like coaches are pretty hilarious, and you just got to give them a chance to do that. And I like that we get to do that on that show. And it also, greases the wheels a little bit. So when we get to see the coaches during the year, they're excited to see us, or at least they're good at faking it.
It could be that too, but I doubt it. What about the other podcast that you do, the Good Morning Softball America on the Softball America Podcast Network with Tara Henry? How did that come about, and how is that one? Is it very similar to the Out of the Box podcast, or a little different? Give us a little insight into that podcast and how that came about and what that one entails.
Yeah, Out of the Box was designed as a more Alabama-centric pod. So we got 5 segments, our trip around the bases. We start at the plate, talking about the Tide, advance to first, talk about the SEC, steal second. That's when we interview somebody in the media or whatever. Round third, who's to say? We're at the time of the year where that's bracketology, but it's whatever we want it to be. And then we head home. That's where we do picks. That's where we do the fun segments. So we do our world famous off the wall segment where we call out dumb comments on social media. And that's a lot of fun. Softball America is just that, national. And so when Tara and I were podcasting at D1 softball and Tara made the jump to SA, she asked me to follow her, and I said, absolutely, like over a cliff, let's go. And we have the best time. And now we've got 2 shows. We've got Good Morning Softball America on a Monday, which is where we interview coaches and players and just kind of rehash what happened on the weekend, the big news and notes, We had a great conversation with DJ Gasso this week. We had Sydney Stewart from Arizona, who just got a golden ticket. And then the Wednesday show is very near and dear to my heart because it is not dictated by anything I want. We roll in, we press play and say, hey, chat, ask us questions, tell us what you want us to talk about. The only thing that we do is the first 5 minutes, we'll talk about our new top 25 and answer questions on that. Last 10 minutes, we'll preview the upcoming weekend. Everything in between, directed by the chat. And some people in the comments will be like, oh, why didn't you talk about this? Well, get in the chat and we'll talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
And I like that interactive nature with fans from literally everywhere, but mostly Norman, Oklahoma, but everywhere.
All right. So I think a big part of this, and one of the things that sort of comes to my mind is I hear you talking about all of these things that you do between broadcasting out at Alabama and doing all of these games and different sports. And you've done baseball this year a little bit as well. And getting a chance to do these podcasts, dude, how do you keep up with everything, especially when you go from like being so Alabama centric to then going on the national stage and having to and being able to talk so in depth about everything else that's happened across the country?
I watch everything. There is not a time, like even tonight we're recording a pod and between segments we're watching OU Wichita State, or we had on like whatever, Ole Miss Memphis was on for a little bit. Like we're watching everything. No days off. And yeah, like it gets to be a lot. Like there have been a couple times this year where I've been looking around going, how the heck am I supposed to get ready for that game when I have that before that? And I haven't even been back to Hobby Lobby to get a new poster board. But I find a way to make it work because I care about it. And as for adjusting between the Alabama and the national perspective, I think, like, again, we get this question all the time because I feel like it's easy for me, but I would understand why people would not understand how that's possible. Like, I feel like I can turn it off fairly well. When we're on the Alabama side, I'm not even really necessarily pro Alabama there. I would say you can probably tell that I would prefer on the radio that Alabama win, but I've always said it's 60-40. If Alabama messes up, I'm not about to sugarcoat it. I'm going to explain what Alabama did wrong. That's been the same thing since high school. Whenever Woodbury would mess it up, I'm not going to drag high school kids, but I would explain what Woodbury did wrong. I didn't care. If their parents got mad, so what? Tell your kid to play better. And that's kind of how I've always been. I've always viewed it as 60-40, maybe 65-35 when the emotions get really high. But on the TV side, like, I really don't care who wins. The one thing that I want any broadcast partner that I've ever had, any producer, any director, we all want one thing, and that's for the game to be good. I couldn't care less who wins on Thursday. I just want it to be a good quality show that we put together and a good game worth watching. And hopefully our work can rise to the moment. If Alabama wins, if Texas wins, okay, I'll deal with that the next day when I'm on radio, and I'll deal with how I feel about that. But when we're on the air, when we're prepping for a TV broadcast, I really don't care. I just want it to be as good a show as possible because I want to make sure that the viewers at home understand everything that they need to about the storylines, about the significance of the moment, about the stakes, about the people on the field, everything that they can possibly soak in 2.5 hours. Let's be real. Alabama, Texas on Thursday will be over 2 hours. And that's, I think, how I'm able to like transition from there. And I hope people buy it because it's genuine. I mean, like, I will sound as excited if Texas hits a home run in the 7th as if Alabama hits one. Although, like, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Sometimes the crowd noise makes one thing sound louder than it is. I can't necessarily dictate how it sounds to people. But my reaction will be the same. And that's because when we're doing TV, we just want a good game. And that's something, like, I didn't even talk about this back when I was working with CBS. That was something that Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson always talked about. And I always got so annoyed whenever Alabama fans in particular would say they're so biased against Alabama. No, they're not. They just want a good game. And the problem is that era of Alabama was beating everyone 42-7. So poor Brad and Gary are bored out of their butt in the booth and have nothing to talk about. Anyone on TV, they just want one thing, and that's the game to be good, so that the show's good, and that's all I want as well.
Talk about the preparation that goes into that. We see the boards behind you, and you mentioned a couple of them as well. And unfortunately, you are getting the one against the UNA Lions framed and signed and all of that with the combined no hitter, perfect game, the whole thing. Sorry, we couldn't give you a better show there to broadcast. I know that was a tough one. It was certainly a tough one to be a part of as well. But talk about all the preparation, because not too long ago, like I talked to you and you were up till like 1, 2 in the morning, like putting stuff together and getting things ready and watching stuff and doing research and all of that. Like, I don't think young broadcasters or people that want to get or say they want to get into this business really understand what it all entails and the grind that it really is to be really good within this industry.
Yeah, it takes a while. I'm not gonna lie to you. And it's different for different things, right? When I'm on the radio, I'm the analyst. So I'm watching for different things. When I'm on TV, I'm play by play. And so like a TV play by play board, I do my stats and like what interesting stat might the people want to know. But really it's much more bio based, much more career numbers, much more personal information, reading articles, all that fun stuff, seeing what I can soak up about the players and the coaches. And that's where doing as much as I do with Alabama helps, because I just naturally find out more because I've been around the kids for 4 years. And so that allows me to kind of really focus in on the other team during the week. I've been reading a lot about Texas. I don't have to read articles on Alabama. I already know about, Salem Hawkins and her life story, but I can learn more about Ashton Maloney and Reese Atwood and JC Nichols and all these other Texas folks. And, that allows me to parcel my time better. Now on the radio side, it's much more like, all right, what is the most random stat that potentially ties into the game that I can talk about? And then it's a lot of film, because yes, on the radio, it is slanted 60-40, but if you don't think that I'm not going to tell you everything about the opponent to give context of what Alabama's trying to do, then you have another thing coming. I think it's a disservice to the listener. If I don't know everything that Carlin Pickens has in the arsenal, then how do you, the listener, know how hard it is to hit off Carlin Pickens? That I am making it seem like it should be easy when it's not. And so, I watch a lot of film. I probably watch an hour and a half on each pitcher, depending. I mean, like aces will get an hour and a half. Some others, if I don't think I'm going to see them, they'll get half an hour, no names. And then I write down a pretty detailed scouting report that I then shorthand together to put on the board. And I make sure that we talk about that so that we're aware of what the listener is aware of what the opposing pitcher's throwing, but also what adjustments you're looking for from the offense. If you see them do something the first time, you don't want to see them do it again the second time. And so that allows for me to kind of watch to see, okay, what adjustment are they making? What are they hunting? What have they figured out that they didn't like the first time through that they're trying to execute on in the second half? And I feel like all that information is pertinent to the listener, even for a specific fan base, because it provides the greater context to how you go on to win or lose a game.
Wow, that is incredibly detailed. Now, just as somebody who is in the media and on the coaching side of it as well, when you go back and you watch film, is it as simple as, hey, I'm going to ESPN Plus and I'm going back and I'm watching games, or do you have a different method of doing that?
We have a Softball America Synergy account. So
we love that. That makes it a lot easier.
That's what I'm using. So I have the stats to back it up too, and then I can go by each pitch and all that jazz. I will say I don't do nearly as much film for TV play-by-play because I really don't have to. I'll go back and watch games, and oftentimes I'm aware of teams anyway, but that's a position where it's not my job to know about the spin rate for whatever, or to know the different ways that someone is throwing a changeup. That's the analyst, and we'll watch film together, and I'll soak up whatever she's seeing. But that's not my primary goal. My primary goal is storytelling and telling the lives of these various people.
Let's talk about Patrick Murphy for a little while. He's been there for a very long time at Alabama, and you've been with him and covering his teams for a while as well. And obviously, you've been an Alabama fan for a long time. What was it like getting a chance from watching them play to getting a chance to interacting with him on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure, or week-to-week basis, I'm sure. I don't know how much interaction you really have with Murph, but talk to me a little bit about what it's been like to work with him, to cover his team so up close, and what is something that really stands out to you as a broadcaster, as a person, as somebody who's close to him. What's something that stands out about him that makes him who he is and as successful as he's been?
Well, I think about the first time I met Murph, and I went to a practice in 2017 because in my head it was like, I'm about to do softball. I need to go see practice. I didn't realize that you probably need to let somebody know, and I went in an SEC collared shirt and an SEC hat. So Murph thinks I'm someone from the SEC office coming to give him bad news of some kind. And I walk down and he has all the players come over and he's like, "Oh, wait, who are you?" And I told him, he goes, "Oh, okay. Nice to meet you." And then they continue with practice. That's a funny memory to me. And then you look at where it is now. And, I think the thing that he does so well is he truly does foster this family atmosphere to the point where it's not just like, it's not words. The proof is in how long everybody's been here. You know, for the longest amount of time while I was here, Allison Habits was the associate head coach for 25 years, and then only retired because her mom got sick, and then only took the Louisiana job because her mom was 15 minutes away. Steph, an alum here, had been the pitching coach for over a decade, well over a decade. Ryan has been around the program for a long time, and then you've got Bro, who was an alum and then comes back, and Lance, who's come in and been a fantastic breath of fresh air, kind of an outsider with new ideas, but who also is very much bought in. And then you look at Michelle Diltz, who's been the strength and conditioning coach for years, and Nate, who's been the SID for 12 years, and Tom has been doing radio for 12 years, and Sherry's been the administrative assistant for 25 years. Like we've all been here for so long because we want to be. And that's not common around other programs at this university, let alone across the country, across various sports. But because Murph has fostered such a family oriented atmosphere, we enjoy getting to go to practice and getting to go on the road, not just because we get to see, games, we get to spend time with each other, and we all hang out off the field. We all, go to dinner and go get margaritas and go to the lake and go to the pool and go on Murph's boat and do all the things. And it's because we all genuinely enjoy spending time with each other. And I think the best personification of that is our softball staff Christmas party. It would be very easy for that to be 12 people, and we come and we, have a little buffet line and then we go. It's like a 50-person event every year because you've got current staff, their spouses who also want to come because they're a part of it. And then you have old staff people, whether it be an old grounds crew guy or the old, academic advisor or the old athletic trainer or the old team like whoever. Allison Habit showed up this year. Didn't even know she was coming. She was just in town. Came by the Christmas party because she heard it was that night. Like it's the way that Murph has made all of us staff want to be there because he's fostered an environment where it's cool to care about each other and spend time together. And I think that's really special. And that certainly percolates its way through the entirety of the program with all the players.
Before we get to some fun questions and things like that, I've got some quick questions I want to ask you and throw at you kind of at the end. I have two other questions that I want to ask that are, I don't want to say on the serious side, but a little bit more serious than we're going to get into here at the end. But first one, if you weren't broadcasting, what would you be doing?
Oh, I want to be a cop or a detective.
Really?
I love mysteries. So me and my best friend, Cooper Barnes, we used to be the sicko kids whenever we would have sleepovers where we would just go up to his room and then sit at different desks and write mystery stories for like until 4 a.m. And then show them to his mom the next day, and she go, "This is great. Okay, did you sleep?" And the answer is always no. But I love a good mystery. I would love to be a detective. Crime stories, that's my happy place. Like softball is my happy place. But when I need a break from softball, which is usually, I don't know, 1 to 2 a.m., that's where I watch some kind of mystery story. I'd want to be a detective.
Interesting. My brother's a cop. I don't know if I
No
told you that.
way.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's a cop in Virginia, I actually.
Where? Are we allowed to say?
Alexandria.
Oh, you know what? Woodbury's rival Episcopal is in Alexandria. So
Uh-oh.
it's fine.
All right. And the other question that I wanted to ask you is, and I know you are incredibly happy with where you're at and you love what you're doing and you don't really know what's next, but what's something that Gray Robertson hasn't accomplished that maybe he would like to, or like what is the ultimate goal for you as a broadcaster? If you're not going to go into being a cop or detective, and if you're going to continue to carry this thing on as a broadcaster, and you continue to get those butterflies, and you feel that nervousness in your chest because you're excitedly nervous about calling a game, and you love the prep and you love everything that you do with it. What mountain do you want to climb?
Oh, good delivery. Golly, I just linear full time. I think that's the next step, and I don't know when we get there. I'm excited to find out. I don't have designs on staying at Alabama forever, although I do love it and I'm happy. And these have been some of the most important years of my life. I understand that there are a lot of things that I want to do ahead, and a lot of that involves doing this around the country, doing it for ESPN or CBS or Fox. I really don't care. I'll say yes. As we already said, I'll say yes pretty much any network, any sport. That's the dream. That's the goal, to be doing this full time, and especially to be doing it full time to a point where I get to pick where I live and then just fly out wherever I have to go, because then I'll be back down here in the state of Alabama, jetting off to wherever they need me to be.
And then if you eventually get a pet or a dog or something, you can be like Herb Street and just bring the dog around with you.
Yes. Worst ways to live a life as a pet.
Yeah. Now, would you want to be like a studio person, or is it always, hey, broadcaster, I want to be calling games?
Play-by-play for sure. I mean, studio stuff is fun. And I think that a lot of that, again, is built around the camaraderie with the people that you do it with. And we had like a game day type show at Woodbury that I did with Dr. Smith and Mr. Jacobs, and that was a blast because it was the three of us. Like, I'm kind of cool doing whatever as long as it's with people who are good at what they do and who do it the right way and who make you feel happy about where you are. And but yeah, play by play ideally. But I mean, again, look, they asked me to do studio at the FIFA World Cup, I'd say yes, even though soccer is not my sport.
Hey, the World Cup is a different level.
Yeah, Rob Stone has got that on lock. That's fine.
Yeah, he does. I mean, who's the other guy that Alexi Lawless? You could be hanging out with him, and oh gosh, Landon Donovan, right? Is in on the studio show. Man, I used to love watching Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey. Who's the bald guy? The goalkeeper? What's his name?
Tim Howard.
Tim Howard. Loved Tim Howard. He was the best. I can't believe
I just pulled a soccer name out.
Yeah, you did. That was pretty impressive.
Crushing it.
All right, let's get to some of the more fun questions. I've got a couple of them here that this short answer, quick, first thing that kind of pops to your mind. You can go into a little depth if you want, but it's fun ones, broadcasting ones. So the first one I want to ask you is, do you have a favorite call you've broadcasted? Is there one that really stands out in your mind that, like, boom, this is my favorite call?
Well, I would say the World Games. Team USA defends home turf. The United States wins gold at the World Games 2022 is up there. But the one that is the most quoted is when Alabama walked off Oklahoma in 2019. Tom is doing play-by-play. There's a brief pause as he's describing what pinch runner Chloe Anderson is doing, rounding third after Caroline Hardy has hit it back up the middle. and you just hear me interject with a quick go. And that's I think still in 10 years, the only time I've ever talked over a Tom call. But go became like a running joke and still is, honestly. So those are my two.
So you said Chloe Anderson, not Chloe Evans, right?
Chloe Anderson.
Okay, got you.
Chloe Anderson. Chloe Evans did not play at Alabama.
No, she played at Florida.
Yeah. And
I
Minnesota.
know that. And Minnesota. Yeah,
And
yeah,
Minnesota.
for sure. All right. So what is the for you, what is the hardest moment to call on air? I know this is
Hardest
kind of a
moment.
weird question, but I was kind of thinking about it and I said, this might be an interesting one to ask Gray because he's called a lot of different games. And obviously, just me thinking about it, like injuries are always hard to describe. Uh,
Yeah.
a game where maybe you are expected to win as an Alabama broadcaster and it surprisingly goes really south. I don't know, just things along those lines.
Injuries are hard. I would say like Bailey Dowling's injury, Claire Jenkins' injury was on the call for both of those. There was a time where me and Sydney Littlejohn Watkins had like a string of ACL injuries that we had to talk about on the TV, which sucked. I think part of it too is when you just like when you get a bad game where Alabama's dominating and not, if you get something like historic at the end, like respectfully, the perfect game, at least we had something to talk about, right? At the end. Whereas like there are other times where you want to tell stories about the other team and because you don't want it to be a biased broadcast and you just can't get there because they're not doing anything good. And
Thanks. That seems
that
personal.
I'm not talking about that because there was something to talk about at the end. But like there have been some games where Alabama's won like 11-1 in 5 and it was just like why are these teams playing right now? And there just aren't windows to talk about some of the good stories that we get on the other team because Alabama's just running that game. And I think those games are kind of hard. I know that sounds like a first world problem, but like I want to tell the stories of the other team, but the problem
Yeah.
is I can't shoehorn that in if the girl strikes out for a fourth time. I mean, that's just not feasible. So those are hard.
Give me a dream sporting event to broadcast outside of calling a national championship win for the Crimson Tide.
Wimbledon.
Ooh, what?
Or the US Open.
I would have not guessed Wimbledon.
Oh, I am a tennis. Look, you come by the house when the US Open is on in September. We got steaks grilling on the grill. We are loaded up for prime time at the US Open. Tennis ruins my January because I'm up until 4 a.m. watching the Australian Open. It's the best, and I would love to call a tennis major. That would be so sick. That's up there.
You've called tennis matches before?
I did in high school. We had 4 cameras set up, and I just unplugged my microphone and went to a different one to broadcast each one. We were really high tech.
Very high tech, but hey, at least it was getting done. So, okay, Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. Very, very cool. Do you model your broadcast style after anybody? Is there anybody that you grew up listening to that you're like, man, like I model what I'm doing after him or her or whomever, or is it just always been uniquely you?
The board, I will say, was a Tim Brando thing because he did something like that and I saw it and I was like, that looks fun, and I like writing things and I love multiple colored Sharpies. So that's how that went. I think like I always try my best to soak up what other people do. And I think Brad Nessler is like up there. I think the way that Brad treats people, first of all, when I was on the crew, just as a lowly production assistant, like he treated everyone the exact same way. He was such a good guy, but also the way that he handles the big moments and finds the right words. That was always what I strive to be. That being said, when I'm in the booth, not a big believer in having the broadcaster voice or turning into a different person. I want to be myself because I feel like I can relate to the broadcasters who I feel like are themselves, and which I found out Brad is pretty much. And I feel like when you're watching, it at least helps you understand that a real person is on the other side talking. So yeah, I'm just myself. I just say things a little with, I guess, with better enunciation.
Absolutely. Just uniquely yourself. Give me the best Alabama softball team that you've got an opportunity to cover.
Ooh. Oh, my answer has to be 2019. That was such a good group. You had freshman year Montana, you had Bailey Hemphill really coming into her own. She and Kaylee Tao were such beasts. You had SEC Pitcher of the Year Sarah Cornell, Crystal Goodman with her ridiculous changeup, Claire Jenkins over at short. Like it was, you had Reagan Dykes behind the plate, Maddie Morgan over at third. That was when Skylar was a part of the program, and Alyssa Brown running things. And like that team was so stacked, but also they wanted it so bad. And what I loved was they were the spark for a stat that we still track today, which is called the response stat. And it's when you score right after the opponent does. When allotted, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're up 5-1 in the top of the seventh. They score 2 runs and you win 5-3, but the game's over. You can't respond. Well, that stat has been something that we've referenced on the radio and on the air on TV many, many times over the years. And it started with 2019 because they just took it personally when you scored on them. And I remember there was a game in Hawaii. Another reason why I love the 2019 team. We went to Hawaii. I think Niagara scored 1 run in the top of the first, and Alabama responded with 9 in the bottom of the first. And Tom and I were just cackling, like, what'd you think was going to happen? You scored a run. Guess what Bama's going to do? And it became a really good barometer, I think, of how much teams can control the energy of a game. And if you watch the Thursday broadcast of Alabama, Texas, that will be coming up with the Texas Longhorns because their response stat is ridiculous.
I can imagine they're a very good softball team from what I hear.
Yes, quite good. Number 1 in the country.
Yeah,
not an
bad.
accident.
Not bad. Well, hey, number ones do fall at some point. I mean, look what happened to Tennessee against Ole Miss last weekend.
Yes, that was a thing that happened. Not predicted by me.
No, well, not predicted by anybody probably outside of Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And even there, they probably weren't predicting that.
Oh, God love them, though. They found a way.
Sure did. All right. You've called a lot of different games in a lot of different environments. What has been the toughest SEC environment to call a game in?
Well, Auburn's hard because we're outside, or we used to be. And there was an incident a couple years ago where we had some things sent in our direction from fans. And, that was always complicated. But I don't know. Honestly, the difficulty of road games isn't even necessarily atmosphere. It's just like sightline. But if we can see, we'll survive. And I frankly, I love traveling. I love going on the road and kind of being able to soak in the various atmospheres at all the different schools, no matter the sport.
Okay, so outside of roads, then, where is your favorite SEC away stadium to call a game at?
The answer is Davis Diamond, Texas A&M. The best. Why? You and I could move into the radio booth and never see each other. That thing is the size of our homes combined. Okay. Views out the wazoo. College Station's really fun anyway, but just the ease with which you can move around the stadium, and they've got TVs everywhere. It's just Davis Diamond is the palace. So I know everybody loves and OU that put all this money in, and I respect it. And the Sooner, you're top 3, but Davis Diamond, top tier, unmatched.
Interesting. Okay, I got to get to College Station. I've never been to College Station, so I'm excited. I went to Tuscaloosa this year. I'm going to get an opportunity to go to Oxford. I've never been to Oxford, so that'll be cool. So we'll see where the travels and the coaching take me as well. I'm looking for. I'm kind of like you. I love going on the road. I love seeing different environments and playing in different places and seeing different cities. Like it's cool to do that. And you and I don't have families of our own, so it's a little different for us. Like we're 2 single guys, and it's easier for us to just pick up and go whenever we want.
True.
And not worry about family and the kids and all of that. So I totally understand that, but it is cool in our current situations that, hey, we can just get up and go. And I don't really worry about coming home. I'm like, I kind of like being on the road. It's cool to check out new cities and new teams and new arenas and new fields and stadiums and all of that.
Yeah, no, totally. I like, got,
Okay,
got
you're
ourselves to worry about.
exactly. You're a big softball guy. So, is there a rule in softball that you wish they would change? One rule change you'd make to softball?
I wish that they would actually call the strike zone. That'd be great. Just, did everyone know that there's a designated strike zone in the rule book? It's there. I can find the page. It's in my backpack. It would be great if our umpires would actually call such things. Just saying, any part of the ball that touches the 3-dimensional strike zone, which strike zones are 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensional, and that would be fine and would help the game. But no, we don't do it. As for an actual rule, I don't know. They change every year. There's nothing I can really shout out that probably won't get adjusted in the next 2-3 seasons.
Okay, can I give you one that I would like changed?
Please. I'll see who I can talk to.
I would like them to adjust the obstruction rule because sometimes it gets a little ridiculous in terms of like what is obstruction and does this really affect the play?
Well, I think the current iteration is as close as I feel it has been to correct, because like last year was such a disaster because
That's what I'm saying. Like, so
you
they've
like,
adjusted it.
yes, and last year they had like the whole like, oh, but if you start your slide, if you're in an obstructing position, it's obstruction. She can be sliding over here and it's obstruct. No, but now let me find my glove.
Uh-oh.
So now, it's in a position. Let me just explain obstruction real quick.
Yeah, go ahead with your glove.
Okay, so if I'm in an obstructing position and the person is running towards me, and do I have a softball? All right, we're going to use, I do have a softball. Here we go. All right. If I'm in an obstructing position and the runner's coming at me and I receive the throw, it now no longer matters that I am in an obstructing position, because if I go down and make the tag and I make the tag before the runner collides with me, even if I was in an obstructing position when I collected the ball, because the tag was applied before the runner could collide with you, bye-bye, she's out. If, however, I'm in an obstructing position, receive the ball, and then they slide into me, and I haven't had a chance to make the tag yet, so basically if there's contact to my leg or knee or whatever before I bring the tag down, that is obstruction. And if I'm not in an obstructing position and I do all these things, then, fill in the blank.
It doesn't really matter at that point because you're not in an obstructing
position.
Yeah,
So,
they have room to slide. So if they slide into you, that's their fault.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So okay, the obstruction rule is one that's frustrated me over the years since I've been in softball. So that's
Oh no, you're not wrong. It is annoying, but I think we're close.
Okay, we're getting closer. I appreciate that demonstration. I love the glove. Where did you get the glove from?
This was a gift from Patrick Murphy. So
Nice.
It's got my name on it.
Sweet.
And it's got the name of the pod right there.
Nice.
Got me and Tom one. Actually, it was Ryan actually tricked me because she came over one night and we were like designing extra gloves and she was like, "Oh, design one." I was like, "All right, sure." And so this was the one I designed.
Wow. And then they ended up getting it for you. Good. That sly little pair.
Oh, Bama.
Those national champions.
So yeah.
Crazy.
All right, let's for a pod demonstration.
Absolutely. Let's get into a couple of fun ones that are not softball related technically. Give me a walk-up song. If you're stepping into the booth, what would you want to be playing? And I know that you do the bat testing and you have your bat testing playlist and y'all have fun with that. And I'm disappointed I didn't get a chance to experience it myself. But if you were kind of stepping into the booth and you wanted a walk-up or walk-in song to play, what would it be?
My current choice is the song from the F1 : the movie, Lose My Mind. Dom Tolliver, I believe, and Doja Cat. Just absolute banger. But also there are a lot of there are a lot of things. I mean, Dixieland Delight would be a great choice, but I think Lose My Mind from
Tennessee
F1 the
song.
movie.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Okay, you know what? Sit down.
I'm already sitting.
Good one.
All right, do you have a go-to game day meal or a post-game victory meal that you like to have?
No, I just have to eat breakfast because then I gotta, take the meds. So I, gotta eat a good hearty breakfast. It depends on what day it is, because if it were the same, like I get Chick-fil-A a lot, but I can't do that before Sunday games. So
Sure can.
it depends on, if I have food at home, I'll make my world famous breakfast sandwiches. If not, I'll go to Whataburger. Varies.
Nice. Okay. Do you have any superstitions before you go on air or before you call a game or anything along those lines?
Yes. So my producers love me. When we go, so they'll do, yeah, as you know, you've been doing TV. You'll get the countdown of, okay, 10 minutes till air. Okay, 5 minutes till air. Okay, 3 minutes till air. Yeah, you get those.
Yep.
Our crew knows that when we get to 5 minutes, you don't say till air, because our producer will pop on and go, all right, 5 minutes. And then my response to signal that it's time to go is I'll press talk back and go, till what? And every producer has eventually gotten in on it. It's a lame joke, but I don't know, it's tradition. And then when we got a minute, that's when we drop the hags. So have a great show, hags. Press talk back. All right, hags, everybody, let's do our thing. Blah blah blah. Fist bump with whoever I'm working with. Only inside a minute. Sometimes I'll go double, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Is that normal?
You had me going back to like middle school yearbook signing. Hags, have a great summer.
Yeah, have a great show. That's how we do, hags.
I like that. Well, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure, my man. I've appreciated you taking an hour and a half of your time to talk to us and to be on the show. Again, honored that you were our first non-coach to be on the show. And you shared a lot of incredible things about not only broadcasting, but your life, your journey, where you've been, where you want to go, the people that you interact with. It just seems like you've had an incredible life, an incredible journey. And I know all of us are really excited to see kind of how it continues to unfold for you. Tell people where they can get the podcast, how they can follow that, how they can, listen and tune in and all of that good stuff with both the shows that you do.
Well, first off, thank you, my friend. And it's hard to believe that I didn't know you like 4 months ago, but here we are.
Here we are. Fast friends.
I know. Gosh, I can't.
Can we start? Can we go do karate in the garage the next time that we hang out?
Sure. You'll be better at it than me. Again, I stick to the talking nowadays. Unless it's pickleball with Daniel Laurie, which I
do you understand that? Did you not understand that reference?
That was Step Brothers.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, I thought that went right over your head.
No, of course not. I'm also an avid Letterboxd user. That's a movie app. I've watched like 3,000 movies. Anyway, yeah, that's also what I do in my free time. But yes, quick aside, I am playing Daniel Laurie in pickleball in 2 weeks, and it will be filmed and it will be taped and posted somewhere. So we'll see what happens.
Wait for that.
Gray versus an Olympian. You'll probably see it on my Twitter/X at Gray, GRAY_Robertson, or the pod at Out of the Box _pod. We got Thursday, Alabama, Texas, SEC Network Plus, me and Kaylee Tao, 1 versus 4. We've been working hard on this show for like weeks. Like we've had other shows and also simultaneously been working on what we're going to do for Texas, Alabama. We're going to make it the best show we've ever done. And I'm beyond excited. And then when I'm on the radio side, Crimson Tide Sports Network on the Varsity app, just look up Alabama and you'll probably find me and Tom somewhere across this great country talking about softball. And I'm posting about it everywhere else. Follow all the Softball America pods. Gosh, just, not to be a Kurt Signetti, but just Google me. I'm probably somewhere. There are too many things to list because I have too many hats and too many areas.
Yeah, and you can certainly go to GrayRobertsonSports.com as well.
That's right.
Amazing, my friend. Thank you so much again for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you as a person, a broadcaster, and a friend as well.
Thanks, Coach G.
All right, there he goes. Greg Robertson here on the Assistant Coaches Lounge. I'm your host, Greg Larnard, again, the UNA hitting coach for the softball team. Follow us all over social media. We are under the Chatted Up Sports umbrella at Chatted Up Sports, wherever you get your podcasts, all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikToks, Twitter, the whole thing. We've enjoyed another great episode. Again, a great guest in Greg Robertson. Peace and love. We'll see you next time.